Here's something nobody tells you about your brain after 60. The time of day you do things might matter almost as much as what you're actually doing. You could be eating the right foods, taking your daily walk, even doing your crossword puzzles religiously, and still not getting the full benefit, simply because of when you're doing it. Sounds strange, right? But stick with me because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly which parts of your day are secretly working for your brain, and which parts might be working against it, without you ever realizing it. Let's talk about why this even matters. Your brain doesn't run on a flat, steady rhythm all day long. It runs on something called a circadian rhythm, which is basically your body's internal clock. This clock controls when you feel alert, when you feel foggy, when your memory works best, and even when your brain does its deepest cleaning and repair work. Most people think of the circadian rhythm as something that only affects sleep. But researchers who study aging and cognition have found it touches almost everything, including how sharp your thinking feels, how strong your mood is, and how well new information sticks in your memory. Here's a story that might sound familiar. Think about a friend or a neighbor, someone who swears they are, quote, a morning person. They wake up early, their mind feels clear, they can read the newspaper or do their bills without any trouble. But hand that same person a task after dinner, and suddenly they're struggling to focus, rereading the same paragraph 3 times. Now think of someone else you know who is the exact opposite. Groggy and slow in the morning, barely able to hold a conversation before 10 a.m., but by evening they come alive. Their mind sharpens, their energy returns, and they're the one cracking jokes and remembering names at the dinner table. This isn't just personality. Scientists believe this is largely tied to something called your chronotype, which is essentially your personal internal clock setting. Now here's where it gets really interesting for those of us over 60. As we age, our circadian rhythm doesn't just stay the same, it actually shifts. Many older adults naturally become more morning-oriented over time, even if they were night owls in their 30s and 40s. This is a normal part of aging, not something to worry about. But it does raise an important question that I get asked all the time. If your brain has a preferred time of day, should you be scheduling your most important mental tasks around that time? And if you get it wrong, are you missing out on real cognitive benefits? Let's break down what actually happens inside your brain each part of the day, because this is where things get practical. In the morning, particularly for many older adults, cortisol levels are naturally higher. Cortisol gets a bad reputation because people associate it with stress. But a healthy morning cortisol rise is actually a normal, helpful part of your body's wake-up system. It's part of what researchers call the cortisol awakening response, and it plays a role in boosting alertness and preparing your brain for focused activity. This is one reason so many people find that mornings are when their memory and concentration feel most reliable, whether that's remembering a doctor's appointment, following a recipe, or having a clear conversation with a grandchild on the phone. But here's the curiosity gap I want to leave you with. Before we move further into this video, morning might be great for memory and focus, but there's actually a specific kind of brain activity that research suggests works better later in the day, and it might completely surprise you. We're going to get into exactly what that is and how you can use it, but first, let's talk about something just as important. The biggest morning mistake almost everyone over 60 makes without realizing it. That mistake is skipping a calm, structured start to the day. So many people wake up and immediately reach for their phone, scroll through news or messages, and let their mind get pulled in 5 directions before they've even had a glass of water. Experts who study healthy aging often point out that the first 30 to 60 minutes after waking set the tone for how your brain performs for hours afterward. When that time is filled with rushed stress or overstimulation, it can leave your mind feeling scattered well into the afternoon. On the other hand, a calmer start, maybe some quiet time with a warm drink, a short walk outside to get natural light, or simply sitting and planning your day, has been associated with better focus and steadier mood throughout the day. Speaking of natural light, this is one of the most underrated tools for brain health after 60, and almost nobody talks about it enough. Getting sunlight exposure within the first hour of waking helps set your circadian rhythm correctly for the entire day. This isn't about tanning or spending hours outside. Even 10 to 20 minutes standing on a porch, sitting by a window, or taking a short morning walk can help signal to your brain that it's time to be alert. Research in aging populations has shown that consistent exposure to natural morning light is linked to better sleep quality at night. And better sleep is one of the single most powerful things you can do for memory and mental clarity as you age. It's a beautiful cycle. Better morning light leads to better nighttime sleep, and better sleep leads to a sharper brain the next day. Now let's talk about food, because what you eat in the morning can either help or hurt your brain's performance for the rest of the day. A heavy breakfast loaded with refined carbohydrates, think sugary cereal, white toast with jam or pastries can cause a quick spike and then a crash in blood sugar. That crash often shows up as brain fog, irritability, or that heavy, sleepy feeling by mid-morning. On the other hand, a breakfast built around protein, healthy fats, and fiber like eggs with vegetables, plain yogurt with berries, or oatmeal with nuts, tends to provide a steadier release of energy. Many nutrition researchers who focus on aging and brain health point to stable blood sugar as one of the foundational pieces of long-term cognitive health, because your brain runs on glucose and it performs best when that fuel supply is steady, rather than spiking and crashing. Here's another open loop for you. We've talked about mornings, but there's a specific window later in the day, not evening yet, but somewhere in the middle, where your brain hits a natural low point that almost everyone experiences. Most people blame this on lunch, but it actually has very little to do with what you ate. Understanding this dip could change how you plan your entire afternoon, and I'll explain exactly what's happening and what to do about it in the next part of this video. Before we move on, let's talk about movement, because when you move matters just as much as how much you move. Morning movement, even something as gentle as stretching, a short walk, or light housework, has been shown in various studies on older adults to improve mood and mental alertness for hours afterward. This happens partly because physical movement increases blood flow to the brain, delivering oxygen and nutrients that support clear thinking. It also triggers the release of certain brain chemicals associated with feeling good and staying focused. You don't need an intense workout. In fact, for most people over 60, gentle, consistent movement is far more sustainable and beneficial than occasional intense exercise. A 20-minute walk after breakfast done consistently tends to offer more brain benefits over time than a single hour-long workout done once a week. There's also something deeply emotional about the morning that I think gets overlooked. For many people over 60, mornings represent a fresh start, a quiet moment before the demands of the day begin. This quiet time isn't just pleasant, it may actually be protective for your brain. Chronic stress, especially the kind that builds up when your mind never gets a calm moment, has been linked in research to accelerated cognitive decline over time. Giving yourself even 15 minutes of peaceful morning time, whether that's prayer, quiet reflection, or simply sitting with your thoughts before the day gets busy, may be one of the simplest and most powerful habits for protecting your brain long-term. So to summarize what we've covered so far, mornings tend to favor memory, focus, and steady energy, especially when supported by natural light. A protein-rich breakfast, gentle movement, and a calm start rather than a rushed one. But we haven't even gotten to the fascinating research on what your brain does best in the afternoon and evening, including that specific type of mental activity that actually works better later in the day. We're also going to talk about the biggest evening mistake that might be quietly undoing all your morning efforts. Stay with me, because part 2 is where this really comes together. Let's pick up right where we left off. With that mid-afternoon dip almost everyone feels, usually somewhere between 1 and 3 in the afternoon. You know the feeling. Your eyelids get heavy, your focus drifts, and suddenly reading the newspaper feels like climbing a hill. Most people assume this is just because they ate lunch, but researchers who study circadian rhythms have found this dip happens even on days when people skip lunch entirely. It's actually built into your internal clock. A natural low point in alertness that happens roughly 7 to 9 hours after you wake up, regardless of food. Here's why this matters for your daily planning. If you know this dip is coming, you can work with it instead of fighting it. This is not the ideal time to try to learn something brand new, balance your checkbook, or have an important conversation that requires sharp focus. Instead, this window is perfect for lower effort activities. Folding laundry, light gardening, listening to music, or even a short rest. Some sleep researchers have found that a very brief rest of 10 to 20 minutes during this window, not a long nap, can actually restore alertness for the rest of the afternoon without interfering with nighttime sleep. The key word there is brief. A short rest tends to refresh you, while a long nap, especially one over 30 minutes, can sometimes leave you groggier and may even make it harder to fall asleep that night. Now here's something that might genuinely surprise you, and it's the answer to that curiosity gap from earlier. While mornings tend to be better for memory recall and steady focus, there's real research suggesting that late afternoon and early evening may actually be better for certain types of thinking. specifically the kind that involves creativity and flexible problem solving. This seems almost backwards at first. Why would your brain be worse at focused tasks but better at creative ones later in the day? The explanation researchers point to is fascinating. When your mind is a little more tired, your brain's filtering system relaxes slightly. That filter is normally what keeps you focused and blocks out distracting or unusual thoughts. When it loosens up a bit, your brain becomes more open to unusual connections and creative leaps. This is why so many people report their best ideas, their favorite memories with grandchildren, or their most meaningful conversations happen in the evening. When the mind is a little looser and less rigid, this means if you're working on a hobby that involves creativity, painting, writing letters to family, working on a puzzle that requires you to think outside the box, or even just having a heartfelt conversation with someone you love, evening might genuinely be your brain's best window for that. It's a beautiful example of how your brain isn't just good or bad at different times of day. It's simply good at different things depending on the time. Let's talk about the evening in more depth, because this is where I see the most well-meaning people accidentally undo their own progress. The biggest evening mistake for brain health after 60 is exposure to bright artificial light, especially from screens, in the hours before bed. Here's why this matters so much. Your brain uses light as its main signal for when to produce melatonin, the hormone that helps you feel sleepy and supports deep restorative sleep. Bright light in the evening, especially the blue light from phones, tablets, and televisions, can trick your brain into thinking it's still daytime, delaying melatonin production and making it harder to fall into deep sleep. Why does this matter so much for brain health specifically, beyond just feeling tired the next day? Because deep sleep is when your brain does some of its most important maintenance work. During deep sleep stages, your brain has been shown in research to clear out metabolic waste products that build up during waking hours, essentially a nightly cleaning process. This process is closely tied to long-term brain health, and disrupting it night after night by staying up late with bright screens may interfere with this natural cleanup. This is one of the most important reasons sleep researchers consistently emphasize protecting your evening light environment, not just for feeling rested but for supporting your brain's long-term health. So what can you actually do about this? You don't have to throw away your television or never look at your phone again. Small practical adjustments make a real difference. Dimming the lights in your home an hour or two before bed signals to your brain that nighttime is approaching. Many phones and tablets now have a night mode or warm light setting that reduces blue light output, and using that in the evening is a simple, free adjustment. Reading a physical book with a warm, soft lamp instead of scrolling on a bright screen is another gentle habit that supports your natural wind-down process. Even something as simple as switching to lower wattage lamps in your living room during evening hours can help. Let's talk about eating in the evening too, because this connects directly to both sleep and next-day brain performance. A heavy meal too close to bedtime can interfere with the quality of your sleep. Your body focuses energy on digestion right when it should be settling into rest mode. Many nutrition experts who study aging suggest finishing your last substantial meal at least 2 to 3 hours before bed, giving your body time to begin the digestion process before you lie down. This doesn't mean going to bed hungry, but rather being mindful of timing and choosing lighter, easier to digest options in the evening if you do need a small snack. Something like a small portion of nuts or a warm cup of herbal tea tends to be gentler on your system than a large, rich meal right before bed. Here's an open loop worth sitting with for a moment. We've talked about morning light, afternoon rest, and evening wind down, but there's actually one specific habit, something most people do at the completely wrong time of day. That could be one of the simplest fixes for improving memory as you age. It has to do with when you review information you want to remember, and it's backed by some genuinely fascinating sleep research. We'll get into that shortly, along with how to put everything we've discussed into one simple daily rhythm that works with your brain instead of against it. Before we get there, let's touch on something emotional again, because I think it matters just as much as the science. So many people over 60 tell me they feel guilty or frustrated when their energy dips at certain times of day, as if it means something is wrong with them. I want to gently push back on that idea. Feeling sharper in the morning and softer in the evening, or vice versa, isn't a flaw. It's simply how the human brain is designed to work, and understanding your own rhythm is far more empowering than fighting against it. When you stop blaming yourself for natural dips in energy and instead plan around them, something wonderful happens. You start to feel more in control of your days, less exhausted, and more present in the moments that matter most. Whether that's a conversation with your spouse, a phone call with your children, or a quiet evening with a good book. Let's also talk briefly about consistency, because this might be the most overlooked piece of the entire puzzle. Your circadian rhythm thrives on predictability. Going to bed and waking up at roughly the same time every day, even on weekends, has been associated in research with better cognitive performance and more stable mood in older adults, compared to irregular sleep and wake times. It's not about being rigid or strict with yourself. It's about giving your brain a reliable pattern to work with, so it knows when to expect alertness and when to expect rest. Many people over 60 who struggle with foggy thinking or forgetfulness find that simply stabilizing their sleep and wake times, even without changing anything else, brings noticeable improvement within just a few weeks. Now, before we move into the final part of this video, where we're going to put all of this together into one simple, easy-to-follow daily rhythm, plus reveal that memory habit most people are doing at the wrong time, let me ask you something. As you've been listening, have you noticed which part of the day your own mind feels sharpest? Morning, afternoon, or evening? Keep that in mind, because in part 3, we're going to help you build a personalized rhythm around exactly that. All right, let's bring everything together, because understanding the science is only useful if you can actually apply it to your real life. Let's start with that memory habit I promised you, the one most people are doing at completely the wrong time. Many people try to memorize important information, names, dates, instructions from a doctor, right before jumping into a busy day. But research on memory consolidation suggests that reviewing important information shortly before sleep, rather than first thing in the morning, may actually help it stick better. This is because your brain uses sleep, particularly certain stages of deep sleep, to strengthen and file away memories from the day. If you want to remember something important, a name you just learned, a piece of advice from a loved one, or details for an upcoming appointment, gently reviewing it in your mind during the quiet minutes before bed may genuinely help it stay with you longer. It's a small shift, but it's backed by real science on how memory works, and it costs nothing to try. Now let's build a simple daily rhythm using everything we've covered. In the morning, aim to get some natural light within the first hour of waking, even if it's just standing by a window or sitting outside briefly with your coffee or tea. Give yourself a calm start rather than an immediate rush into stress or screens. If possible, eat a breakfast with some protein and fiber to keep your blood sugar steady, and try to fit in some gentle movement, even a short walk, sometime in the morning hours. This is also a wonderful window for tasks that require focus and memory, paying bills, making important phone calls, or learning something new. As you move into early afternoon, expect that natural dip in alertness and don't fight it or judge yourself for it. This is a great time for lighter activities, and if you need rest, keep it brief, somewhere around 10 to 20 minutes rather than a long nap. As the afternoon shifts into evening, this becomes your window for creativity and connection. Hobbies, meaningful conversations, and activities that don't require rigid focus tend to shine during this part of the day. As evening progresses, start dimming the lights in your home, put on warm lighting instead of harsh overhead lights, and consider switching your phone or tablet to night mode if you're using screens. Try to finish any substantial meals a couple of hours before bed. And in the final 30 minutes before sleep, consider gently reviewing anything important you want to remember, while also giving your mind a calm, quiet close to the day. I want to be clear about something important. This rhythm isn't a rigid rule book, and you shouldn't feel stressed trying to follow it perfectly. Your own personal chronotype matters here too. If you've always been a night owl, some of these patterns might shift slightly for you, and that's completely normal. The goal isn't perfection, it's awareness. When you understand roughly how your own brain moves through the day, you can start making small, gentle adjustments that work with your natural rhythm instead of against it. Let's also address something many people wonder about, especially those managing sleep difficulties or restlessness as they've gotten older. If you find you naturally wake up earlier than you used to, or feel sleepier earlier in the evening, this is an extremely common and normal shift that happens with age. Your circadian rhythm gradually moves earlier for many people as they move through their 60s, 70s, and beyond. Rather than fighting this shift, working with it, going to bed a bit earlier and rising a bit earlier if that's what your body wants, often leads to better quality rest than forcing yourself to stay up later, just because that used to be your old pattern. I also want to gently remind you that all of these habits, morning light, gentle movement, steady nutrition, brief afternoon rest, evening wind down, work best as a whole picture rather than isolated fixes. Brain health after 60 isn't about one single perfect habit. It's about the accumulation of small, consistent choices made day after day, week after week. Research on healthy aging consistently points to this same theme. It's rarely one dramatic change that makes the biggest difference. It's the quiet, steady habits repeated over months and years that shape how sharp, clear, and resilient your mind stays as you age. I know some of this might feel like a lot to take in, so let me simplify it into just 3 takeaways you can start with today without overwhelming yourself. First, protect your mornings. Get natural light early, eat something steady and protein-rich, and give yourself a calm rather than rushed start. Second, respect your natural dips. Don't fight that early afternoon slump. Work with it through light activity or a brief rest instead of pushing through with caffeine or frustration. Third, protect your evenings. Dim the lights, step away from bright screens before bed, and give your mind a calm, quiet close to the day, because that's when so much of your brain's important overnight work happens. If there's one thing I hope you take away from this video, it's this. Your brain isn't working against you as you get older. It's simply asking you to understand its rhythm a little better. When you start paying attention to when you do things, not just what you do, you may find that the same habits you've already been trying to build, staying active, eating well, staying mentally engaged, suddenly feel easier and more effective, simply because you're working with your brain's natural timing instead of against it. This is one of the most empowering things about healthy aging. Small shifts in awareness, not drastic overhauls, often lead to the most meaningful and lasting improvements. Aging well isn't about chasing some perfect routine you saw in a magazine or trying to have the energy of a 25-year-old. It's about learning to listen to your own body and your own mind, and giving both the support they need at the right moments. You've already lived decades of experience, and that experience has given you something incredibly valuable. The ability to notice patterns in yourself that younger people often overlook entirely. Trust that experience. Pay attention to when your mind feels clearest and when it feels tired, and start shaping your days gently around that natural rhythm. Now, I would genuinely love to hear from you. Are you someone who feels sharper in the morning? Or does your mind come alive in the evening instead? Take a moment and share that in the comments below, because I read every single one, and your experience might help someone else watching who's trying to figure out their own rhythm. If this video gave you even one helpful idea today, please consider sharing it with a friend or family member who might benefit from it too, someone who's also navigating these wonderful, sometimes challenging years of getting older with grace and intention. And if you'd like more videos like this one, practical, science-based, and focused on helping you stay sharp, active, and independent for years to come, go ahead and subscribe to this channel, because there's so much more valuable information coming your way. Thank you for spending this time with me today, and I'll see you in the next video, where we'll keep uncovering simple, powerful ways to support your health as you age.